The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on January 25th, 2023, and we have a special guest to interview today. We're kind of doing a series now. We're trying to interview people who actually are holding office as libertarians, because we think that's so important at the grassroots level to really see libertarians making a difference in their community. And so today we're going to be interviewing Shannon Denniston. He was recently elected as a Magistrate Justice of the Peace for Montgomery County in Kentucky. So we're excited to have him on the show today. And let me introduce you to the rest of our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon the Word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So let's jump right into it. One of the things we think is so important is because, with all these things, lockdowns and everything else we've seen so many abuses that, it's so important that we try and show examples of people who are making a difference out there. And so we've got Shannon on the show. He recently won an election in Kentucky, and let's find out a little more about it. So Shannon, do you want to tell us a little bit about, your campaign and how that evolved and how you decided to run for office?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I'm a registered libertarian. So I'm a big L. Some people identify as a little L, and they're registered different. I found that in Kentucky, a lot of people are registered one way or the other, so they can vote in the primary election. And some people, oddly enough, they register opposite of the party of their values, so they can pick their competitor's candidate, I guess, which is kind of strange to me. But I am a registered libertarian, and I'm so happy I found the party. I felt kind of like, an independent before I found out the Libertarian Party existed. And I just kind of scratching my head at a lot of policies and ordinances and things like that government at all levels orchestrates. So it's refreshing, very refreshing to discover that there's other people that have a similar belief structure and guiding set of principles as myself. And it's just a breath of fresh air. So how I came to get started, my campaign rather, and running as now an elected official is I received a phone call from someone whom I respect very highly in the party, and was encouraged to step up to seek office. I'm a very busy entrepreneur. I own several businesses in our community, and some of which, some online businesses as well. Used to build website systems for different corporations, and got into real estate after that. Did a large-scale music festival one year, and it didn't really go as planned. It made a little bit of money, but not enough to sustain itself. I've tried a lot of different things over the years, probably 20, 30 businesses or more, at least probably 30 businesses at this point. I'm 43 years old. My first business was in the third grade, and, just kind of built on that. So how I like I said, I got asked to step up and run for office. A lot of people over the years have asked me to put my name in the hat and run for something. And it hasn't really been good timing to do that, right? So we have to make the timing right. So one day when I got a series of phone calls, I eventually said, well, okay, what do you need me to do? And I just did what was asked of me. It was an uncontested race, so I didn't have any opposition, so pretty easy to win that. And that's part of what intrigued me by it was how I was kind of thinking, what can I do, on an individual level to kind of spur things along for the party? And we're in a very small town. We just had a handful, I think less than 10 people actually registered libertarian in our community of approximately 30,000 people. So you can see, obviously, a lot of people hadn't heard of the Libertarian Party, myself being one of them. And once I discovered it, almost fell in love with it. The principles, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, that resonates with me. And come to find out it resonates with a lot of people. So my campaign has been about answering the question, what is libertarianism? Who is the Libertarian Party? And since I've become elected, a lot of people have asked me those questions. And that's my way to kind of share with them, about the party. And several of whom have now transferred over or switched over to our party. So that's nice to see that happen as well. I'd like to think we have a lot more registered libertarians now in Montgomery County. I know that there are more, but I'm not sure exactly. I haven't looked at the numbers, but it's still a really small portion, segment compared to Republicans and Democrats, obviously. But it's nice because we now have an elected libertarian in our county. And prior to this, I would hear things like, we'll never have an elected libertarian. There's no way that a libertarian can win a race. And things like that. So I enjoy a good challenge. And, when I'd hear those things, it prodded me to seek election and to become elected. And this is I'm starting my third 4-year term. So I was just sworn in the other day. And it's interesting because when I went to run initially for my first term, I was told that the deadline had already passed. And I found out that the deadline for independents and other third parties, which we're one of as libertarians, the deadline's later. So I was doing it by the book, but I was kind of shut down early on in my campaign because they said that the deadline had passed, and I politely asked them to reach out to the state level government for clarification, which they did. And then I was able to run and get elected. But something else that opened my eyes is I was presented with a sheet and I was instructed to gather 20 signatures. However, if I ran as a Republican or as a Democrat, I only had to have 2 signatures, myself and my spouse.
Wow.
Wow, the odds are stacked against us, and maybe this is why we don't have a lot of libertarians in office. And I believe in higher office, like state office, you have to have thousands of signatures versus just a small handful of signatures to get into those positions. So the scales are highly weighted towards the opposition.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because we've talked to Larry Sharp on the show before, and that was exactly what happened to him. They just keep changing the goalpost for what he has to have in order to get on the ballot. So, go ahead, Leon. You had a question there.
No, I was going to ask Shannon. Shannon, did you start off? I'm talking about the history here. Did you start off as a Republican or a Democrat or an independent? What did you start off as?
I grew up a Democrat, I guess, as a child. My parents were Democrats. That's when the Democrats were for the working person. And, they were a good party. I think when I was growing up in the 80s, about everybody was Democrats. And, Republicans were for the rich person and Democrats were for the working middle class. And I grew up on a farm. My parents were farmers and my grandparents were farmers. And Dad owned a bunch of businesses as well. But at the core of it all, we were a farming family. So shortly after, I guess when I started getting into politics and getting politicals, when I started making money and having to stroke big checks to the government, I was 21 or 2 years old and I had to write a check. I think it's $136,000 one year for income taxes. And I had it put away, but it was all I had. It literally wiped out my bank account. And it just got me thinking, there has to be a better way than penalizing success in the world. When someone's creating opportunity for others, maybe we should not penalize that person. Maybe we should do things to help create more of that behavior. But come to find out, government does not want you to be successful. They don't want you to be independent. They don't want you to be vocal. They don't want you to be bold. All these things that the Libertarian Party is for, our government is opposed to. So naturally, I was drawn into it, and I said, well, this is wonderful because we have a platform here that we can use to spread this message to other people. Sorry if I got off on a tangent there.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I'm very much interested in what you're saying. You're talking about your history, but let me ask you something though. You said that
I was Republican though before I switched to Libertarian. Yes, absolutely.
You were a Republican. Okay, but do you feel that these parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, which are the 2 major parties here in the United States, of course, do you believe they have left their traditional roots in terms of, like you said, the Democrats when you were growing up were basically a party of the working class? I guess you don't feel that anymore.
No, absolutely not. The oligarchy, that's what we have, right? We have 2 parties that are in control, and some people say, well, it's 2 heads on the same snake. we have to come to grips with reality, and reality is Democrats and Republicans are on the same team. And, not much is going to change as long as we have Democrats or Republicans in charge, because it's a power play. They work together to pass legislation. Not that that's wrong. That's what has to happen. But there's things that are put into bills that shouldn't be in there just to get the bill passed. I would like to think that, if we had Libertarian leadership, that they would stall a bill and they would say, we're not going to pass this bill because it has bad stuff in it. And that would maybe embark on a process of change, I would like to believe. So that's the ultimate goal, right, is to get Libertarian leadership at the national level. Before we do that, obviously, it has to be at the state level. Before we can even get to the state level, we have to do a ground roots movement and make it happen locally in our cities and our counties. So right now, that's where we are, and that's where I'd like to see the party focus, is on the local levels. Cities getting Libertarian leadership onto city councils, getting Libertarian leadership into county fiscal courts, things like that. Once we plant our flag locally in our communities and more people are exposed to what libertarianism is and what it means, you'd be surprised how many people thinks that L or LP on the ballot means liberal. So a lot of people, they believe that libertarians are liberals, and that's a whole nother discussion, I believe. I guess at the core of that, we were classic liberalism, maybe.
Yes.
But we're not. We're not. I mean, we're I guess socially liberal and fiscally conservative is probably how I would explain it. The easiest way I explain it is I just like to ask a question: do you think we have too much government or not enough government? And everybody says, well, we got too much government. And well, do you want more government or do you want less government? Well, we want less government. Well, you're never going to get less government when you're voting for people who want more government. And there's very few people that want less government. There's very few people that want to see the government spend less money. There's just not that voice out there.
Yeah. Well, to give people a sense of sort of where you're at, and Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. Essentially, you guys kind of have a mixed bag there in Kentucky. So you got looks like a few Republicans elected to state office, a few Democrats. As you say, there's no Libertarians, and then you have some nonpartisan positions. As far as at the congressional level, you guys also sort of have a mixed bag there too as well. But of course, your Senate seats are both Republican there. You have Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, I believe, and of course Thomas Massie stands out for a lot of Libertarians as well, and he's one of your representatives too. So you certainly with Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, those are definitely names that stick out for Libertarians as people who are pretty freedom oriented. And as far as Cato goes, they actually do a freedom index, and so they put Kentucky right about in the middle of the pack here at 25, and so they kind of rank each state relative to the others, and that's sort of how they're showing that they're doing. And essentially they're saying that on some areas like regulatory, you guys are pretty good, and on some areas like personal, freedoms, maybe not so much. So those are kind of where they're showing. What's your thoughts on Kentucky being a representative there? Is that is Liberty doing pretty well there in Kentucky?
I think we're getting started. I don't think that it's running rampant like it should be. I feel that there's way too much regulation and red tape. One of my occupations is I'm a builder and developer, and I've been trying to add additional housing to our community. And I'm, I think, on year number 5 now to get 82, I think it's 82 units of housing, 84 units of housing approved. It shouldn't take years to get, housing approved, for instance. So a tremendous amount of red tape and cost and expense and stuff that you have to go through, and obviously a lot of drama and stuff as well. But, it's just, I feel like the entrepreneur is kind of being looked down upon now, and that is being attacked. I feel that pride, people that are proud of their accomplishments in life, are also being attacked. look at Elon Musk. I haven't ever seen so many people hate a guy as that guy, and look at all the wonderful things that he's done in his life so far.
Yes.
The things that he's working on, rather magnificent, if you ask me. People want to laugh at the guy because he lost some, money on paper, but just watch what happens. I'm almost willing to make a bet that he's probably the first trillionaire. So, I have a lot of respect for people like that. Does it mean you have to respect them fully? No. Does it mean you have to agree with someone 100%? Certainly not. But just try to take the good from each person, each relationship that you have, and try to maybe turn a blind eye to the bad somewhat, and so it doesn't become part of you. But we have to be really careful, what information we're feeding ourselves, because everybody we're around and everything we put into our heads, it's shaping who we are. It's shaping our thought process, and after this podcast, each of you guys are gonna live in my head for a little while, right? So even something as minute as this, it still has influence. So I just try to be a good influence for people and try to spread the message of liberty. The best way for me to do it at this point in my life, because I'm extremely busy as an entrepreneur who owns multiple businesses, is for me to have this position and answer people's questions at my local level. All of my focus right now is at the local level, just kind of building the grassroots, if you will, campaign for libertarianism. I was able this last year to bring on another gentleman to inspire him to step forward and also become a justice of the peace. We actually have 4 justice of the peace positions, and he ran as well and was elected. So we now have 2 elected libertarians in our county, which is incredible. I'm not sure of any other counties that have more than 1, and there's very few counties that even have 1. So, you have to start somewhere. We're still on the launch pad. I know the party is rather old, but we have a long way to go. What I would like to see happen is see the party pull back from the national campaign and message and focus strictly on the local level.
Well, there's something. Sorry, Leon. I just wanted to follow up on what you were talking about there with getting another person involved at the local level as well. It seems like maybe with COVID and the lockdowns, maybe something that is contagious with all this is maybe a little bit of liberty is becoming contagious in all these places. Is that sort of your experience that a lot of people are sort of waking up to ideas of liberty there because of the lockdowns?
They are. And, you have to understand, when we were in the middle of the pandemic, it was all very dangerous to come forward and to do things. There was a rally. I was asked on a political standpoint to come speak at the rally and share, my thoughts on it and different things at our state capitol. And I declined the speaking invitation, but I went and participated. And I went live on Facebook. It's all I did. I had my mask on like everybody else and taking precautions because we didn't know what we were up against. But I just knew that it was wrong to shut down businesses, and it was almost all small businesses. They didn't pick on any of the monopolies that they helped create. They just picked on the little guys, the mom and pops, to really push them out of business. Come to find out, government loves monopolies. They like just, having to control a very small number of companies versus, a large number of companies. So I went to this rally. It was titled Reopen Kentucky Rally. And I think I had, 10 or 12,000 people live on my live stream in a matter of minutes. For some reason, it took off. Maybe nobody else was live streaming that day, but there were thousands of people at that event. And 95% of the messages I got were negative. How dare you be out in public? And, just messages like that. People were calling our home and our businesses, making death threats just because I was out in public. It was quite absurd. And, if you want to, it's just weird. But anyways, long story short, a lot of people, they, I think, are coming around to libertarianism now because they know in their core that that's wrong for government to lock people up. Tell people they can't travel on the public roads, tell people they can't go and protest at their state capitals, things like that. All that's wrong. Here in Kentucky, our governor, who's an evil man, in my opinion, sent out the state troopers. It's evil. Listen to this. Listen to what this guy did. And I'm just going to share one story. I don't want to give him any credit, but, here's something he needs credit for is he sent our state troopers, who are funded by taxpayers, to churches to intimidate church people, so who are going to church on Sunday, who are practicing that right. And, just wrong. I mean, if that doesn't open a person's eyes right there, what will? But I know that there were other places that went to even far worse extremes. I would say that probably government costs more lives than the virus itself.
Yeah, I agree with that. But let me ask you something though. I mean, on a larger scale, philosophically, I feel like a lot of politicians, I mean, I'm not here to disparage you as a politician, but a lot of politicians talk this good game of liberty, but yet they go to the state capital or wherever it is the seat of government is, and they become corrupted by this big monstrosity known as the government. It seems like they get sucked into the philosophy of spread independency. What do you think about that? Do you think this is a disease that we need to really fight against, or why it is that it seems that many of these people who during their campaign they speak this very good game of liberty and freedoms, but yet you see them voting for legislation that does everything to take away our liberties?
Very good point. I believe that most politicians, they have a good heart, they mean well. What I don't like about politicians in general is they make these pie in the sky promises to people. They try to, you might be for something, Leon, and Jason might be for the opposite. And the typical politician, will make promises to both of you that they know that they can't hold true to because it's going to violate one of those promises, right? So I hate seeing that. I hate being lied to. I feel that they start out with great intentions and they get around bad influences, and I think it just goes, south from there. It goes back to, back to the old saying, "What birds of a feather flock together," and you are who you hang around. So I believe that there's a lot of corruption, in government, and I don't think that was the intent. I know certainly our country wasn't created with that intent. But, one thing we have to keep in mind here is that, government is continually expanding. And the bigger the government we have, the more failures we have. The only reason we have a large government is because we failed in a lot of areas. And government today, I mean, it's not about protecting us from one another. It's about protecting us from ourselves, So, one
Yes.
thing I'm opposed to is these victimless crimes, There's a whole lot of them. I mean, there's people serving time and sentences for things that there were no victims. There's people that haven't even had their day in court or had a trial and they're behind bars. That's wrong. I hate it when someone says one thing, but their actions, they do something else. And we see that a whole lot in government, right? I mean, you might even go and meet with some of your legislators and you think they're going to vote one way, and lo and behold, they vote the other way. And then when you call them or text them or write them and they say, well, I had to vote that way. It wasn't going to have enough votes to pass out a committee, or it wasn't going to have enough votes to be successful. So what I'm hearing here is that they want to be on the side of popularity, not on the side of being right. And sometimes being right means standing alone.
Well, Shannon, from your office that you've been elected to, how will you be able to make a difference towards fighting for liberty from this office? Because you certainly talked about victimless crimes and such like that. Is there any ways you foresee that you'll be able to do something, from your office?
Well, part of me being in this position is to kind of fill it out, right? If I want to run for something higher. I've been asked to run for state senate. I have my wife and I, we've discussed that deeply multiple times. At this point, it's just not good timing. Although our state senator from Montgomery County, he has resigned his position, and I had a phone call from the party. I believe it was the day he resigned. They asked me if they could run me as a candidate for his seat. And it's just the timing's not right. It's not a good fit for my family and I at this time. But so my sights are still kind of, set at a higher level. I don't have a lot of influence. I don't have the level of influence that I'd like to have at the position where I'm at, but it's a starting point. It was a way for me to kind of establish myself as a politician and a candidate for liberty, and more importantly, to get people to ask the question, well, what is a libertarian? Because we have to pull back. We have to educate people that a libertarian is not a liberal. Now we are, like I said, socially liberal about things, obviously, marijuana reform, all drugs in general, but we can't be out here building a massive government to protect people from themselves. That will never work. It's an endless rabbit hole. You'll just keep going down in this hole forever. At some point we have to draw the line, and we have to say, hey, we have to teach responsibility. We have to teach independence. There's a lot of things that we don't teach kids in school that we should be teaching. And, entrepreneurship, I felt so lonely when I was in school. It was like I was different than everybody else because I was always trying to have a business. Something, and even in college, I earned a full ride scholarship, and I do not recommend college for the record, but the reason I went is I lost my father my senior year of high school. He was killed tragically in a bulldozer accident. He was a builder developer, and things didn't go his way that day. And long story short, I lost my dad right before graduation. But I appreciate it. But it's just really hard. But from I guess I'd like to seek a higher office maybe at some point. I'm not sure if that'll be Kentucky. We're looking at Florida as well, spending some time down in Florida. But I just feel this calling, and I feel it a lot. To be in a position somewhere where I can influence a large number of people in a positive way.
Well, Shannon, we're starting to get close to the end of the show, but one of the things I did want to ask you about, in case there's one of our audiences sitting out there, they want to know how they can make a difference. What kind of help were you able to get from the Libertarian Party in your run? Were there resources there? Did the National Party help out? Was it just the local, or did you get any help?
I'd like to say I had support, but there wasn't any financial support. The good news is you don't need a lot of money to run for office at the local level. You can run a grassroots campaign with a Facebook page and knocking on doors, gathering signatures. For my position, I just needed 20 signatures from people in my district. That might seem a little daunting if you're a shy person, but there's people in the campaign that will help you get the signatures if you need help. So don't be shy to ask for help. But I was able to get the signatures, and hey, I'll play the game, whatever's asked of me. But to make things right, I don't like the odds being stacked against one party or the other. I'd like to see us have way more than 3 major parties. I like people having options. So to answer your question, what I would encourage people to do and hopefully inspire people to do is, reach out to the national party and your local party affiliates if you have some already, which you probably do, and just see what seats are available at your local level, at the city level and at the county level. And you might find some seats that are open that no one's running for. You might find a lot of seats just have one person running for them. So, hey, you've got a 50-50 shot right off the bat. Don't feel like people have to know you or you have to know a lot of people. Those are all things that you can do in time. And don't get discouraged if you don't get elected the first time around. Each time you run, you're going to build that name recognition. And as you become more known as a vocal person in your communities, then people are going to kind of gravitate to you. And things like that. So, just be a vocal person, be an opinionated person, talk about the things that matter. You don't catch me talking about the weather and sports very much. So I try to talk about, politics and business and entrepreneurship. Those are the core things I like to discuss.
Well, boy, that was great advice, I think. And I think if you want to go and find out more about Shannon Denniston, he has a web page. It's his Facebook page, but you can find that at shannondenniston.com. And so you can, maybe connect with him that way as well. Thanks so much, Shannon, for coming on the show and telling people about your experience. We're hoping that by doing a series of these with people who trying to make a difference at the local level, would inspire people to get up and do something. Because, boy, I tell you, that's the only way we're going to make a difference in this country is if people start to think that they can do something at their local level. But thanks so much, Shannon, for joining us on the show. And thank you to all our guests for tuning in. And until the next one, stay free.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks, guys.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.